Now, before this video started, you probably saw an ad. If you were probably actually using an ad blocker, so you didn't, but I wish you wouldn't. Not because it decreases my revenue by 1/10 of a cent, but because it would have been a good example of what I'm about to say here. Whatever, I'll just do the example anyway. That ad wasn't bought until this page started loading. The second you clicked on this video, your data was sent off to an ad exchange who sent it to the advertisers who bid on the ad placement, all automatically, instantaneously. So the second this video started loading, you got to see some bullshit that you ignored. So that's programmatic advertising. Every time you see an ad online, a complex bidding process has taken place to make that happen. It's like a restaurant where the second you arrive, the wait staff take all your belongings off of you, and maybe some third-party wait staff chip in with some extra belongings that they previously stole from your house. They present all that to the cooks, and the cooks compete to be the one to produce your meal. Also that by the time you sit down, you've got a plate of warm shit to ignore. It really is one of the most ineffectual forms of advertising ever invented, which I think you know, right? Of course, it's always talked about as being this exciting targeting individuals thing. Yeah, once every 3 years, you get an ad that is scarily accurate, but you see 3 million ads every year. That's like a 1 in 10 million chance that it does the thing that it's literally designed to do, which is not a very good strike rate. Now, in the 90s, no one really knew how to monetize the internet. It was a wondrous time of joy, and no, I don't know what it's like, but there were possibilities around what the internet could be. And then AT&T made a banner ad that said, "Click here," and half the people who saw it clicked there because back in the 90s, everyone was thick as shit. So there was a massive explosion in that sort of thing, and a massive decline in click-through rates, down to like 3% within the year. And there's nothing the tech companies love more than solving a problem with their yet-to-be-made product, by which I mean identify a non-problem and make things worse. So they went, okay, we'll collect a bit of personal data to target the advertising. And that didn't actually work. So they went, okay, we'll collect a bit more data. And that didn't actually work. So they went, okay, we'll collect a bit more data. So that became the dominant business model of the internet. All they'd managed to do with this data collection and targeting was make the advertising more expensive. But the idea of machines predicting our behavior is very exciting. Exciting enough to provoke a lot of investment, while those click-through rates kept dropping. Then Google joined the game and combined a lot of these early experiments into a system that revolutionized advertising. It's this sort of hybrid of this data collection and targeting, a real-time data trading marketplace. And it didn't work, but they got everyone using it by doing a very clever trick. They lied about how effective it was. And they coincidentally changed their policy to delete campaigns that were underperforming, basically inflating their statistics at the cost of some business. And it was enough to get people hyped. And everyone went, yeah, let's keep doing this forever, while the click-through rates kept dropping. The basic idea of advertising is you're gonna shove your stuff into a bunch of people's faces, and hopefully it's interesting to some of them. So the exciting promise of targeted advertising is you're going to take out all that guesswork and only show people ads that they want to see. The only problem with that is it's not really possible. The minor improvements in targeting that they have been able to make are far outweighed by the costs of making the system work. Of course, it does do something. It does put ads in front of people, but this entire industry around the collection and trading of personal data doesn't add anything. You can look at your Google ad profile, your Instagram interests, and get an idea of what you're getting targeted as. You know, I didn't know this about me, but I'm a upper-class married homeowner working in hospitality, maintenance, and business. I don't have children, but I have an interest in childcare and water purification. To be fair, I do like cutlery and cutting accessories. Not more than your average person, I don't think, but, you know, they are conducive to eating. It's meaningless, right? Obviously, I'm not going to see relevant ads if this is what the most complex targeting system in the world thinks of me. There's a push to collect as much data as possible, which means very little quality control. So they'll often collect it from unreliable sources in unreliable ways. It's really quantity, not quality. The vast majority of the data is bad. Some of the most damning research shows that it's like 80% inaccurate. The odds of being correctly gendered are worse than if you did it by coin toss. They assume that people always enter their data absolutely correctly. Like when you hit an age verification page, you actually input your actual birthday rather than just scrolling to the 90s and the year field. They assume when you like something, you did it because you like the keywords involved. And old information persists, so you know, you shouldn't have liked Harry Potter as a kid if you weren't prepared to like it forever. You idiot, you fucking moron. And one of the ways they get so much data on you is by combining data sets. And increasingly this data is anonymized because there's less regulation around trading anonymous data. But anonymous data isn't very anonymous because what they do is they just basically combine rows on spreadsheets. If there's enough matches between two sets of data, they get combined, which is of course fairly prone to error. And then once they have all that acquired data, which is already basically useless, they will process it. They'll fill in the blanks using probabilities, or as it's more commonly known, stereotyping. They'll even take that to the point where they will fabricate an entire data set for a person based on basically nothing. And then that ends up getting fed back in as if it's actual data and used to make guesses about other people's data. So that's how we've ended up in this situation where everyone has 1 million data points collected on them. But most of it's garbage and it's basically useless to advertisers. So they take all these data points and try and process it down into something more useful. So everyone ends up with basically scores in categories. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you a social media influencer? How much are you pregnant? How much are you a poor person likely to fall for scams? That one's the main use case, actually. But basically all programmatic advertising is going to come from Google or Facebook. It's really just them. So they're very incentivized to manipulate, or at least ignore the manipulation of these exchanges. There's basically no regulation, no transparency. No one even really knows what is being bought and sold, which means they can overinflate their statistics and no one can tell. And when they do get found out, they face no consequences. Like when Facebook said the only thing doing well on their platform was video, and it was doing incredibly well. Thousands of journalists were fired, there was this massive boom of social media video, and then they said, oh, whoops, we lied. Or a couple of years ago they said they were reaching 101 million 18 to 34-year-olds in the United States, which was 25 million more than actually existed. And then 1/3 of display ad clicks are fraudulent, half of mobile ad clicks are accidental, and in reality, 93% of ads don't even get looked at by a person. But the platforms don't tell you that, and they don't tell the advertisers that, because if they ignore it, it makes their numbers look better. It used to be an advertiser would buy ad space that's set to receive a certain amount of attention, and a percentage of that attention is going to be worthwhile. Programmatic advertising promises that every attention has value. So they're buying and selling these abstract packages of individual attention in this extremely complex system of automation. But the system is hiding the fact that most of those packages are just garbage. And ultimately the platforms and the advertisers and everyone in between have no idea what they're buying and selling. The advertiser thinks they're buying a dollar value of attention, but actually 70% of that gets eaten up by these hidden third parties and unnecessary systems. A lot of large companies have recently dropped their $100 million ad spend, and they've seen no impact at all. Spending that same amount of money on traditional advertising has massively increased their reach, and some platforms have stopped supporting these external ad exchanges, moving towards a more traditional model of negotiating specific deals with people, which has massively increased their ad revenue. So this whole ad system that we're all so mad and scared about, it isn't really working at all. But it has succeeded in making a lot of things worse. I mean, obviously privacy, but let's not go there because this video is already dragging. But awkwardly, all the criticism of this system, of this data collection and targeting, was based on the idea that it does work. So instead of tearing them down, we hyped them up. All that's really come out of it is that privacy is now a marketable buzzword. So now, like, Apple and Reddit just want to collect data within their own ecosystem. They're not necessarily selling it, they're just collecting it so that they can set up their own mini ad network. What a win for privacy. Apple, the privacy company. Remember 5 years ago when they leaked everyone's cloud nudes? It's like Shell Oil rebranding as the green energy company. Well, I suppose they kind of are doing that. But in a world where this stuff doesn't do what they say it can, we're left with, are there still reasons why we might not want it? Again, obviously, privacy. But that's out of scope for this video, okay? Get over it. When advertising is worth fuck all, content that relies on that advertising is also worth fuck all. It used to be that publishers would try and make something good, and then advertisers would want to associate with your media product. But now there's so many layers between the producer and the advertiser, there's no relationship between the content and the advertising. It's just a race around who can capture the most attention of any quality by any means necessary. It's the perfect breeding ground for hysterical contrarian takes and constant low-effort content. When you remove the questions of taste and quality and you're really just trying to capture as much attention as possible, it's really just about getting people riled up to an extent that traditional advertising actually doesn't support. So that's why everyone's mad online. Thank you, I solved it. There were so many possibilities around what the internet could have become, and it's ended up being almost exclusively a marketing vehicle, which is stifling the possibilities of what can be. Every social media is built off of this, so they all have to have the same data collection and like button and algorithmic targeting. They all have to match the features of each other, and at the end of the day it just forces every new technology into just being the same ad data collection service. The fact that it doesn't work has allowed some companies to make major profits while driving everything else into the ground. The modern internet is built on this system, and it has made it exploitative and stagnant. But you know, this failed system that fucking sucks and has accidentally made everything worse contains within it something quite hopeful. If the entire modern internet is built on a lie, that means it can exist without it.